What happens when a conversation slows down to the speed of pen and paper? Texting is fast, but it leaves plenty of room to feel entirely alone. Published on 13 August 2026, this Psyche essay looks at what happens when communication slows down to the speed of handwriting. A physical letter forces a different kind of attention. It asks the sender to sit quietly and imagine the person on the receiving end. The value of putting pen to paper has very little to do with the exact words sent. Instead, it offers a rare chance to hold someone else in mind without expecting an immediate reply. Written by Amanda Lee Lichtenstein in Psyche. Narrated for Ava. Before a long trip, my father would often hand me a white envelope with my name written on the front. "Do not open it until you land," he'd insist. I'd get to my final destination and tear open the letter with a sense of urgency, to read those words written just for me. I loved his handwriting, how his careful letters in black ink grew bigger and sloppier, until the letter concluded with his classic signature, and sometimes a smiley face with glasses. I used to carry around these letters as amulets. They were lifelines when I felt lost and insecure. I also wrote many letters as a traveller, full of questions and conundrums, revelations and requests, or just to say, "I'm thinking of you." Writing letters grounded me in unfamiliar places. With a pen and paper in hand, I paid closer attention to the details of a place, and it helped me feel a little less lonely on the road. Years later, I still have hundreds of letters from friends and family who wrote back to say, "I'm thinking of you too." Like so many of us, I stopped writing letters as I spent more time online. But in the past few years, I've begun to see handwritten letters anew, as a form of resistance against the doom and disconnection of our digital lives. For me, the act of writing a heartfelt letter is a spiritual practice. It deepens our ability to connect with each other and with ourselves. And we're all so hungry for connection. I set out to see if I could rekindle a love of letter writing. Last November, I kicked off a workshop at my local library by asking participants to share what excited them most about writing letters. One young woman, a recent high school graduate who came to the workshop with her mother, confessed that she'd never written a letter before, but wanted to learn how, so that she could repair a strained friendship. Text messages just weren't cutting it, she explained. She needed a way to go deeper, to communicate something from the heart. Everyone in the room nodded in recognition. We talked about how, in the age of texting, tapping, swiping, scrolling and refreshing, many of us struggle with feelings of isolation and despair. Many people now spend so much time online that they've forgotten, or have never known, what it felt like to tend to relationships entirely offline. Letters offer a way back into that degree of care, asking the letter writer to show up fully for another person in a way that seems increasingly rare. Like many spiritual practices, writing a letter calls for an elevated level of presence and patience, from composing it, to sending it in the mail, to awaiting its arrival. Since many of us are accustomed to immediate gratification and lightning-fast responses, it can feel uncomfortable, maybe a little threatening, to slow down and focus undivided attention on what you're communicating to someone in the way that a letter invites you to do. But the beauty of letter writing is that what you say matters less than the act of writing itself. I believe the ritual is the remedy. Putting pen to paper plugs us into the present tense. Letter writing stands out for being an embodied practice, according to Emily Grayson, a psychotherapist who sometimes assigns letter writing to her clients to help them understand themselves and their relationships.
She notes that the entire process is at once tactile and relational. The writing implement, paper and envelope you use, the words you carefully choose, and the act of keeping another in mind through direct address are all essential elements. The physicality of handwriting brings you back to your body and creates a sense of urgency around the message. In my experience, it can also help you downshift from anxious and reactive to calm and reflective. When I'm writing a letter, I notice how I slip into a more meditative state, making it easier for my mind to wander inward in search of the memories and messages I want to express. Writing a letter can help clarify complex emotions and dynamics, even when it never gets sent. Something happens, Grayson observes, when people give themselves permission to show up fully through the act of writing a letter, allowing for the unexpected feelings and thoughts that may surface when given the space. A letter is a private dialogue, but it also has this intention of reaching someone from a deeper part of ourselves, she told me. Ideally, it's the first part of a longer conversation that deepens when the letter lands with the receiver. What's more, you can't write a genuine letter without at least trying to imagine what the other person might be thinking or feeling. In this way, each letter is an act of empathic perspective-taking, one in which you clarify your own viewpoint while simultaneously spending time with the imagined experience of another. Keeping the other person in mind, without the expectation of an immediate reply or reaction, gives you a chance to sit with that person and the relationship in its complexity.
Grayson's clients come to her with complicated relationship issues, including estrangement between parents and children. Sometimes writing a letter can help clarify complex emotions and dynamics, she says, even when it never gets sent. Making the contents of one's mind visible through a letter can generate what she calls an energetic release of feelings that find their forms and symbols. A letter gets things moving, she explains, allowing the writer to soften enough to see new perspectives. If all writing is a form of prayer, then letter writing is a form of devotion to the messiness of human relationships, all the idiosyncrasies and imperfections. I think about writing a letter as taking a holy risk, an idea borrowed from the mystic and philosopher Martin Buber. About a century ago, Buber wrote I and Thou, 1923, as a response to what he saw as an abounding existential mistrust in the post-war era. Buber believed that the divine lives in the relational between of a shared life world, in the words of the historian and biographer Paul Mendes-Floh. When I first read Buber in college, this idea of mutual coexistence struck me as poetic. The notion of spiritual interdependence, that the self doesn't exist without the other, that human relationships make us whole, served as a guiding philosophical principle. But I'm realising now that Buber's ideas also highlight what's so powerful about letter writing as a relational act, especially in a disembodied world where so many of us feel alone. The letter-writing process evokes what Buber calls the mystery of reciprocity, the ever-present possibility of turning fully toward one another and relating not as transactional objects, but as complex humans with the spark of the divine in each of us.
Letter writing has the power to help restore a way of relating that is generous, personal, and spiritual. Every letter reaffirms a connection, no matter how fraught or fragile, by reorienting us to the other. By the time I seal the envelope, I already sense a change in myself. I'm a little less alone, a little less guarded, and a lot more open to finding words to share my story. The philosopher Simone Weil wrote that attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. But we're out of practice. As more of us attempt to wrest ourselves away from the addictive grip of our smartphones, letter writing has the power to help restore a way of relating that is generous, personal, and spiritual. Perhaps it's been a while since you've written a letter yourself, or, like the young woman at my workshop, you never have. A letter is all about slowing down to sit with yourself in the imagined presence of another. Whether you're struck with a longing to share feelings, confess a truth, offer encouragement, say thanks, share personal news, or apologise, the letter lends itself as a place to process, reflect, express, and connect. The form itself offers some structural guidelines, begin with greetings and end with goodbyes,
but you're free to improvise what happens in the space between. That being said, you could start by simply thinking of a loved one, conjuring them up in your mind. Turn toward that person and imagine what you want to tell them, what you want them to know about you in this moment, and what you might long to know about them. Then grab a piece of paper and a pen, find a quiet place to sit, and listen for the messages within. When you're ready, begin to write in the direction of your chosen person.
A letter starts with a turning inward, but the felt presence of another orients you toward your audience of one. Ask a question, share a story, speak with curiosity. Imagine it's just the two of you meeting in a private room, defying the boundaries of time and space. A letter is a testament to the unique spirit of the individual who produces it. From the curves of our handwriting to the ways we sign off, traces of our essence linger in the letter. And when you receive a reply, holding it in your hands can make you feel as if the other person is right there with you. Knowing that someone took the time to sit with their thoughts about you for longer than an instant makes the ritual worth the effort. It might be time for a letter-writing revival. There are already projects such as Letters Against Isolation, which connects young people with elders through letter writing, and Post-Crossing, a global postcard exchange program. In the workshops I've led, attendees vary on what draws them to writing letters, from the tangibility of it to the anticipation of receiving a reply in the mail, but nearly all say it's a satisfying way to get offline and connect with greater intention and meaning. As proof of our collective desire to stay in touch, the letter lingers on.